Hello Wolfpack, we're back here on Bitcoin, but before we even get into the video, I want to talk about the Crypto Academy. Now the course is finally live. Myself and Megawell Crypto have made the course. You can go to the website cryptoacademy.courses and check out more information about that. I also want to quickly bring up Wolves of Crypto membership on the V.I.P membership on the YouTube channel here. So we've got altcoin trading signals, priority reply to comments, and a 2-hour video on market psychology. You can gain access to as well as many emojis and badges to your name. But without further ado here, because obviously you guys are here for the video, we've got Bitcoin and we've got the hourly chart. And yesterday we talked about this bearish pennant formation that was playing out. And we said that, hey, it is a bearish pennant formation. And so we do need to assume a break to downside is the likely scenario. However, we did actually break to downside as expected, but the 30K support has been stern and it's actually held up, right? And this is what happens when you see low volume breakdowns. So we can see that on the daily chart, for example, the volume had kind of almost, 6 monthly highs that we hadn't seen since basically May 2021. And then we had a massive breakdown of downside and the volume's kind of dwindled off since then. And why is that? Well, it's because now we're in a region in which not many people are sure of what to do, right? All of the people who were previously bullish have flipped to bearish, or at least on the fence. And all the people who were previously bearish have flipped to, well, maybe the bottom's in. We saw 24K, maybe that was the bottom. And so the market is in an indecisive position. Not many people are sure about where it's going to go decisively. And they're kind of sitting back and waiting to see what happens at 30K. And what you see when that kind of general market sentiment is around of indecisiveness is low volume, and the volume has been gradually descending. And I would expect it to continue to descend until a move has been made either below 30K or above 33K. And that's kind of the range we're in right now. And what we're waiting for is a 33K break or a 30K break. And some people would say, well, Wolves Crypto, we've broken below 30K. I mean, we're at 29K right now. Well, when I say 30K, I'm actually referring to the support block between 28.9K and 30K. Now, the interesting thing about that support block is that it is significantly weakened, and there's no denying that. I mean, on the daily chart, if you go back to January 2021 all the way through to May to July 2021, we never actually closed within that support block. In fact, on every single daily candle, we wicked into it, and we had enough buying pressure, enough demand in that region to push the price back up. However, on this occurrence, we've actually closed in it significantly. I mean, over 7 or 8 daily candle closes at this point, which is insane. And it kind of represents the fact that that support block, yeah, it's still holding, but it's extremely weak. It's extremely fragile, and it's only going to take one more little push to push the price below that support block. And as you guys would know, I do think that the price will eventually go below that support block, and I will be outlining in this video what I would need to be seeing for me to flip back bullish, because I'm still bearish. I still think we're going to see lower lows on Bitcoin, and I don't think 30K is going to be holding. As for that breakdown, though, it was a low volume breakdown into support, and we can't expect it to equate to much. What this kind of means is that, yeah, that bearish pennant structure was valid, and yeah, we did get a breakdown from that, and we did actually drop down quite significantly. We dropped down still like 3-4% from that bearish pennant, so it was a valid pennant. However, it wasn't enough, right? The price needs more time to consolidate in this region. It needs more time for market participants to make a new bias on the market, a new bullish or bearish bias on the market, and decide what they think is going to happen before the price can actually move out of this range. It just means that it's too premature at this point to determine whether we're going to whether we're going to drop or pump. And we saw the exact same thing in May to July 2021, right? We saw many triangle formations, many pennant formations, many shorter term channel formations, which, the price was jumping up and down like a yo-yo, but it didn't actually equate to much. And this is exactly what we're starting to see now. Now, do I think we'll see a 3-month consolidation period like we saw in May to July? No, not at all. I don't. But I do think, the consolidation at this point is certainly not over. When will it end? I don't know, but we definitely need a separate structure to form before it breaks down. With all of that said, though, we have actually just barely closed this daily candle below that support block. However, it seems as though the price action is wicking back to the upside, and I would consider that an invalid break. So what we're looking for ultimately is a clear and concise daily candle close below 28.8K. We had one just then below 28.7K, but it wasn't enough. We need an actual clear break, preferably 2 consecutive candles would confirm the breakdown. Moving forward, in a time when government regulation constantly threatens crypto investors, being able to access an exchange without KYC being mandatory is absolutely exceptional. This is great for me personally as an Australian, because a lot of other exchanges out there like Binance don't allow me to access options due to Australian regulation. BitGet additionally is also host to trading fees even lower than the vast majority of the major exchanges at just 0.2% per trade. Sign up to BitGet using my referral link in the pinned comment below or the description box, and you will receive up to 153 USD deposited into your account as a reward. What we can see on the 4-year cycle theory, kind of affirming my opinion that the bottom is not in, is, well, the 4-year cycle trend as it is. And this is kind of suggesting that, hey, the bottom will not be in on Bitcoin until around November 2022. Obviously, it doesn't need to be that way. And obviously, this trend is quite loose and the date ranges are quite loose. They're not very precise. And so we're talking, give or take a couple of months, but November 2022 is what we're looking at. And so bottoming out right now in May would be a bit premature in my personal opinion. And where would we bottom? Well, looking at the historical trend for Bitcoin, the trend is we bottom out on the 200-week SMA, which is this green line. And we've seen that, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times in 2015 and 2018 and during the COVID drop, all of which bottoming out on that 200-week SMA, around 15 months in total spent lurking at that 200-week SMA area. We've never actually closed a weekly candle below that line. And so, yes, you can see many, many wicks below it. But the weekly candle close is what we're looking at. It is a weekly SMA after all. And so at that point, well, at this point, I should say, it is currently lurking at 22K. And so I could expect, and I would expect based on this trend, Bitcoin to continue downwards at some point in the near future towards 22K, through which it will most likely hold the 200-week for support. Now, we have discussed in the past a possibility that we could drop below that 200-week SMA, and that is obviously, a possibility. It's obviously not even particularly unlikely, because that trend will break eventually. But at this point, we have to assume that will be the short-term bottom, or the macro bottom, I should say. And we have to see the price reaction from that price region before we even make a decision on whether we should buy there or not. So if we get to 22K tomorrow, which again, I don't think is possible, but if we do, it doesn't mean you should just go all in and drop your life savings into Bitcoin, right? It just means you could wait and see what the reaction is from that region. One thing to consider is that when we get to that price region, and when we get down to 22K, we don't just, go straight upwards. We actually see a lengthy accumulation region around that period, out 2 out of the 3 occasions. The one exception was the COVID drop, which was a black swan event, in which obviously the price action was fairly irrational. But generally speaking, for macro bear market bottoms, we're going to see some consolidation around that region. So you're not going to need a rush to make a decision. You can take your time. But moving on even further to the monthly chart, I want to talk about this briefly because obviously the monthly chart has that 21 EMA, and that is a very critical MA. And so when we've lost it historically, we've only lost it on 3 separate occasions, firstly. And we lost it in 2015, we lost it in 2018, and we lost it during the COVID drop in 2020. And on all of those occasions, we saw drops of upwards of 47%, right? Taking into account diminishing returns, we have recently lost it. Now, we haven't closed a candle below it, right? So what we need to be thinking about, and obviously, as you guys would know, if you're proficient in TA, if you know much about TA, you need to see candle closes on the respective MA in order to confirm a breakdown or a break upwards from that support or resistance region. And so right now, the 21 EMA is at 37K. If we close the monthly candle right now below 37K, that would be a confirmed breakdown from that support or resistance region. And that would kind of be an indication that we need to be seeing at least a 40% correction, taking into account diminishing returns, which would take us down to the 200-week SMA. We can also look and we can observe that the RSI on the monthly chart at 44, and the RSI is the macro bottom place, right? We can see this horizontal red line. We bottomed out there in 2015 and 2018, and we're getting close to it now. And so that is another indication that we are close to the bottom, but it's an indication that we're not actually at the bottom yet. And that makes sense according to our other analysis here. So pressing forward a little bit more, I have talked about it before and I will talk about it again. What will I need to see to be bullish on the market again, right? So what do people often say to me? Well, I've been bearish for a long time, right? I've been bearish since November, been bearish since 60K. Obviously, my original 24K prediction has played out quite well, but people often say, well, this guy's just a perma bear. What do you need to see to be bullish on the market again? What do you need to see to change your mind? Well, what I would say to that is the trend currently on Bitcoin. I'm a big believer in investing with the trend until it ends, right? The trend currently on Bitcoin is that every time we lose the 50-week SMA on the weekly chart, we end up at 200. We saw it here, we saw it here, and we saw it during 2020. Okay, we've lost the 50-week SMA again, and if we're investing with the trend, we have to assume that unless we get back above the 50-week SMA, we will be bottoming out on the 200 or below, right? So with that in mind, in conclusion, for me to be bullish on Bitcoin again, and for what I would say for anyone to be bullish on Bitcoin again in a macro scenario, we would need to be jumping above the 50-week SMA, and hence we would need to be getting above 44.4K currently. If we close weekly candles above the 50-week SMA, and I don't mean, little pathetic weekly candle closes like what we saw here in March, where we just closed barely above it and then dropped right down below. If we close decisively, or decisively I should say, above the 50-week SMA at 44.4K, which is trending downwards slightly, that would be an indication that the bear market bottom is in. That would be an indication that we're renewing the macro upwards trend. That has never happened before without an upwards trend happening. We saw, if we're going over times we've broken above it, for example, we broke above it here in 2015 before a macro upwards trend. We broke above it here in 2019 before a macro upwards trend. If the COVID drop didn't happen, this upwards trend would have continued, right? So there's 2 occasions of it happening. And so again, we would need to be breaking above that red line, the 50-week SMA, for a macro upwards trend to ensue. And I don't think that's going to happen at this point. But if it does, hey, I'll be happy to change my mind and flip bullish once again. One more thing we need to be looking at, or should I say one of the 2 last things we need to be looking at on Bitcoin in this brief update here is the Bitcoin dominance chart. I spoke about it in a video earlier this week. The Bitcoin dominance chart is a chart that measures the strength of Bitcoin in relation to altcoins in a percentage form. And the Bitcoin dominance chart has broken to the upside. And not only is it broken to the upside, it's also seen a resistance support flip on this descending wedge formation that it broke to the upside. And we can expect higher percentages on the Bitcoin dominance chart, which obviously leads to weakness in altcoins and strength in Bitcoin, which is a typical telltale sign of a bear market on Bitcoin and a bear market strengthening on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. And yes, that's another piece of evidence for that. And with that uptrend only just starting, we can expect it to continue quite a bit. And this is why I don't think the bottom is in the short term, because if the bottom was in the short term, yeah, we do see the Bitcoin dominance chart trend upwards with time, but we wouldn't be seeing the initial break just now when the bottom was in, right? We'd be seeing, quite an extensive period of upwards movements already on the Bitcoin dominance chart before the bottom was in. But with that said, I have spoken before about the Bitcoin bottom being as early as August. I think it's going to be as early as August and as late as probably December this year, with a preference on November. November is the original prediction, and November will remain my most accurate date that I can pin it down to. Moving forward further, we can see the total cryptocurrency market cap has pretty decisively and pretty clearly objectively broken down from an uptrending support level, as you guys would already know already, and it's retesting, much like Bitcoin, a support level that it formed in 2021, and also it formed during the May to July correction during 2021 as well. And so do I think that will hold for a third time? Much like Bitcoin, I do not think it will hold for a third time. And on this chart, the nearest support level below that would actually be down here at around 821 billion, which would lead to a drop in the cryptocurrency market cap of another 30%, which I think is entirely possible. When you're speaking about Bitcoin, Bitcoin probably has another 20% down to go from this current price region to reach its macro bottom, maybe more. And if Bitcoin drops 20%, that's easily a 40% drop in altcoins, which would lead to a 30% drop all up in the total cryptocurrency market cap. So just a brief little update. I know we didn't really cover too much new stuff here, but honestly, there's not too much new stuff to cover. All we've seen on Bitcoin on the shorter term time frames, even on the daily chart, is consolidation at this support level, and then a low volume breakdown. Yesterday I said this would be a decisive breakout. There was no reason to believe it would be anything but that. However, it did just end up being a bit of a weak breakout to the downside. And so although the downside trend or the downwards trend is still very much prominent, we are on support here with low volume, and it's kind of a situation in which we need to be waiting and seeing. There's no new structure that's been forming. We're a bit unsure of what's going to happen, if we're entirely honest here, in this shorter term price region. But in the longer term price region, I'm pretty sure the evidence is very, very clear that downwards is to be expected. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.